Welcome to The Space Between. On this episode, I am joined by Darryl Gaines. Darryl is an internationally celebrated astrologer of over 30 years and has a profound understanding of the times we are living in. He has recently launched a monthly radio show on healthylife.net. Together, we discuss astrology, the Aquarian age, and the misunderstandings that exist around the energies of the planets. Join us as we connect through conversation. Welcome back to the Space Between podcast. I'm Alyson Rixner, and I am joined again by the wonderful, amazing astrologer, Darryl Gaines.
Thank you, Alyson. It's nice to come back so soon.
Yes, we are technically doing this in the same time as the first episode.
Well, if they can shoot movies that way, why can't we?
Absolutely. And we had so much fun on the first one.
Yes, we did.
I do want to let the audience know that if you haven't had a chance to listen to the first episode, we really do dive into what is the space between. I don't want to call it required listening, but it might be a good idea for people to really listen to what that means, and we really dove into it. So,
especially as you continue.
Absolutely. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you.
And thank you to the audience. And just to quickly recap, the space between is really where we're at today after what we've went through over the last couple of years. All the changes and difficulties, transformations, how we view the world has shifted, and we're not quite who we were. We're not yet who we are going to become, and we're just kind of in the space between, which is a beautiful place.
It's not limbo, that's for sure.
It is not.
It's far from inertia or putting our head in the sand.
Absolutely.
We're very active.
We are. And the intention, which I'm going to bring up on every single episode that we do, is to have an honest conversation about the major themes in our lives in relation to this new normal for us, the space between. And my hope is that you can connect back to yourself. You can connect to each other, open up dialogues, and really think about how you relate to the world and how you relate to the things that we're going to discuss. And I'm very excited about today's theme, which is astrology misunderstood.
Yes. Because I feel strongly that it is misunderstood. And I want to be an agent of change. I want it to come back to what I feel deeply, profoundly, how it was supposed to be practiced as a spiritual science, as an understanding of self, as transcending from self and finding that space in between with others and existing, starting with me and ending with we.
It's beautiful.
But respecting both.
Absolutely.
Mutually. That space in between the me and the we. That's full circle.
Yes.
Right? Halftime, it's the battle in relationships. But at the end of the game, it's the we. And we're all winners.
Absolutely. And we're all under the same sky with the same energies.
I like to say, because it's one of my favorite novels ever, it's The Sheltering Sky.
Yeah.
Right? I thought maybe it was a little too esoteric when I was thinking of a name for my business. But ultimately, I went with Guiding Planet because I feel that that's what the planets are. They're a guide. They are here to celebrate autonomy, to give us a guide, but to direct our own life. And I know, as a part of astrology being misunderstood, that some people come with the psychic belief that I'm here to predict your life.
Yes.
You make your life.
Absolutely.
No one can predict your life.
No.
I say with confidence, I understand the weather patterns of your life. I understand what you were born with. I can also see some of the themes of the past, what you've gotten through. I also can see where you are. But ultimately, to take all of that and give you confidence and understanding where you can go, because it's with awareness.
Absolutely.
It's with understanding. But to sit with a client and predict her life would be wrong. I mean, life is meant to be lived. I love life. And I certainly wouldn't want someone predicting my life. I love guidance, but ultimately,
knowledge is power.
Knowledge is power. That's not a cliche, even though
and you have no ego. And I would love for you to give us kind of a little overview of your background. Who are you? Where have you arrived to this moment as an astrologer? What did that path look like for you?
Oh, wow. You really are forcing me to write a book, right?
That book is coming out, baby.
Because I want to be careful, because it's like me. But it really is about my path. The yellow brick road that I built for myself, I knew I would never be on anyone else's yellow brick road. Mm-hmm. I knew that. It was difficult.
Yeah.
It was difficult, not because I wanted to fit in, it's because I want everyone to know they have to build their own yellow brick road.
You have that understanding. And are you saying you always did?
I always did. From when I can remember. And it was supported in different ways. There were challenges. But ultimately, I came into existence I was born during the beginning of the age of Aquarius. And my upbringing, even though there were some limitations, there was an Aquarian environment where I didn't grow up with differences between races and nationalities. Because fortunately...
And during that time as well.
During that time. And because of my mother's belief system, she had people from all over the world come and stay in our house.
She was very open, your mother, Janet.
Absolutely. Although I don't agree with her belief system. Yes. I'm very grateful that I didn't grow up with the limitations of a census box. And that speaks volumes for my chart, because that energy, that Aquarius energy, I'm not an Aquarius, but the planet that rules it, Uranus, sits on the hot point, the ascendant, with the moon. So there's an understanding of the world, and that we're all different, but we're all walking in each other's shoes. And ultimately, the space in between us really is the we.
It is.
Right?
Fun fact. You and I were born in the same hospital.
I know. And
how in the hell did that happen? Well, you and I are very serendipitous, and we've had many past lives. But the fact that we were born, so in astrology, the location, not the exact specific birthplace, but the location of your chart is important.
Yes.
And you and I were literally born in the exact same spot.
Hospital.
Which is crazy.
And there are certain points.
We're both from Pittsburgh. We should say that.
Yes. Which is Western Pennsylvania. Please don't get it for your audience. The difference between Pittsburgh and Philadelphia is the difference between Eureka, California, and San Diego. Pittsburgh is Western Pennsylvania. It is truly the Midwest.
Absolutely.
It is the gateway to the West, where Philadelphia is very East Coast.
Very different.
But the point is that we were born at the same hospital. There are points in our charts, for instance, those spaces in between that define our purpose are very well placed in our chart together.
Charts.
So it's almost, there's always been an understanding, but there truly is an understanding in our relationship, the space in between. Coming back. Yeah. That's why I'm so thrilled for you, because selfishly it speaks for our relationship.
You saw this before anyone did.
Yes, so and that space is a positive thing.
It is.
Because we get to fill it.
We do. And we get to live.
We get to live.
Which is the whole point.
Right. The space is in a pause.
No.
It actually is not inertia at all.
No.
It's actually pragmatic.
It's a beautiful place to
And it's
be.
like throwing us, all of this peripheral stuff that sometimes we get unhinged with, and then we come back to earth, right?
A place
with understanding.
of neutrality. Yes. So talk to us before we kind of get into why astrology is misunderstood. Talk to us a little bit about your path with astrology. Like when did you first become interested in it? Do you remember kind of that moment?
Of course. It's when I had my chart done, because I didn't believe as a teenager, say around...
Yeah, how old were you?
When I started...
Well, when you had your chart read, when it was kind of the
I was a teenager in Germany. And also... but it was almost the psychotherapist that I needed 14 years prior. Because why am I so different? Because we tend to, so many of us want to scream diversity, but true diversity is the astrological birth chart. Because true diversity is not putting people into boxes. To really understand the individual, when you look at the birth chart, when you look at the moment of the sky, you don't see gender, you don't see race, you don't see sexuality. You see the individual. As we give that first breath, we have an opportunity to walk in each other's shoes.
Without the third dimensional construct. And for people that don't understand what that means, the third dimensional plane is the physical existence that we're here. There are other dimensions, and
of course,
this isn't it, right? But that's important for people to understand. I think.
But just sense and sensibility, Alyson.
Right. But you're talking about the bigger picture.
Yes,
you're talking about looking at the soul. And I think that that's important for people to understand. You're not looking at me, Alyson Rixner, where I'm from, what I look like, who my parents are. You're looking at the moment I was born, who was I and who am I here to become? And that's really what the chart. And so are you saying that when you had that experience as a young teenager, that when did you get it? I got it right away. So it resonated. Well, because of course it's your purpose, but you were that young. I mean, that's a blessing. Mm-hmm.
What's interesting is the astrologer thought I was going to be a singer. He said, because people will hear your voice. I was like...
And people weren't podcasting.
Right.
And people weren't online talking.
Right.
They had radio, right? And television, and that was it.
Right. And he didn't know that I had been on radio since the age of 13. But being a nerd, being different in the sense, here's this 13-year-old kid on KDKA radio doing movie reviews, arguing with Leonard Maltin about, coming home was better than The Deer Hunter. This little brat saying that.
But with your voice and your energy. And this is what you were made to do, is to share it. And he saw that. He just maybe, again, with his own bias, right? He was like, you're going to be a singer.
But that wasn't, again, yes. Right. But also the unusual, Uranus on the ascendant with an unusual path. Right. But Uranus is also the planet that rules astrology. Right. Because it's about awareness. It is. It's about the world becoming one. Yes. Filling in those spaces between us. Yeah. That's why I love your podcast. And what you don't even know where you're going. It's just so wonderful.
There's so much to
unpack. It's so truly Aquarian without speaking the language of astrology, but it's quintessentially Aquarian what you're doing. And it has, even though you're not, proselytizing astrology, you're walking in the shoes of awareness and understanding.
And this podcast is going to have a lot of spiritual and astrological elements to it. I'm a student of both. And I do believe in this time, in the space between and where we're headed, is a lot more spirituality that's going to merge with technology, that is going to be much more on the forefront. And
now more than ever.
I mean, this is just the beginning. We've just cracked a little side of it, right? There's so much more to go.
Yes, so much more. I think I jokingly said to you that probably 7 years ago, it was the spin instructor that was the new celebrity. Right. Now it's the spiritual practitioner, because now it's mind, body, and soul. Right.
We're in another cycle.
Because we're at a critical juncture in awareness. And
And
the reason why astrology is misunderstood is because we get so caught up in the me when ultimately it really is the we.
Right.
First and foremost, we have to understand ourselves.
Right.
But more importantly, we've got to understand the space between us.
Right.
Because when I'm looking at you, and even if I'm fighting with you, which we never have, fortunately.
We haven't.
Even if I'm fighting with you.
Right.
It's that space in between of understanding.
Yes.
I say that for anyone that we have acrimonious disputes with.
Yeah. There's always a lesson and there's always an understanding. There's always something to be learned and resonated.
In astrology, again, it's another language, but it's about the mathematical equation. And the one that, unfortunately, as in line with being misunderstood, is the mathematical equation of 180 degrees, the opposition.
Right.
And Alyson, oppositions as we get older are better than the so-called good mathematical equations, the trine, the 120-degree relationship between planets, or the 60-degree relationship. A lot of astrologers, and I am not in possession of the Holy Grail. We're always learning as astrologers. But I adamantly and almost with arrogance say that the space in between, the opposition, is, if you work it right, is far better than the so-called good.
It serves more.
Because you extend your hand and you look at that opposition and there's peace once there's understanding.
Love, peace, and understanding. How Aquarian is that?
But that opposition initially is very tough.
Yeah.
A child born with Saturn opposed Sun.
Yeah,
that's tough. Oof. But it's also in the charts of very, very successful people.
Well.
Because that space.
Diamonds are made in pressure.
Exactly.
Diamonds.
And that's another piece of astrology being misunderstood. And I love that the kids, your generation, it's resonating so strongly.
Oh, for sure.
But there's so
Everyone's talking about their chart, it seems like.
There's pieces that, and again, I don't say this with ego. There's so much that's misunderstood.
Yeah.
We get so excited about those 120-degree trines. We get so excited about Jupiter. Well, Jupiter now is going to be trining my sun. Well, you know what happens? You know what happens?
People in their apps too, because everyone, it's
and that's great,
which is great, but it also can
right,
yeah,
right.
It can create some chaotic misunderstanding. Talk about misunderstanding, right?
And it does what I was so afraid. It sort of puts astrology back to that. It's a parlor game. It's not serious.
We need to talk about that.
Astrology is a science. It's a science,
and that's the bottom line. And I think that's what's misunderstood. So one of the things we're going to do in every episode is we are going to use the Oxford Dictionary to define what we're talking about. Because, again, we talk about these narratives. What is it that people think about astrology? If you were to go to the Oxford Dictionary, the definition is the study of movements and relative positions of celestial bodies interpreted as having an influence on human affairs and the natural world.
Wow.
That is the dictionary definition of astrology. And I'm sure it's changed over the years. I'm sure it wasn't that way, 50 years ago.
But because there are so many variables at birth, when you look at the chart, when you look at that moment of birth, and that's what our birth charts are. And the reason why the timing is so important, the exact time, is because the time acts as the architect, the designer, and it places where all of those planets are in the birth chart.
Where they
fall. But also the reason why location, because going back to science, longitude and latitude.
Right.
It defines the size of those 12 pieces. That said, the misunderstanding of that definition is really based on all the variables, because it can become a contradiction. You have Sun opposed Saturn, but yet your moon is trining Saturn and it's in blah, blah, blah. And you get bogged down, and it can almost come off like a contradiction.
Right.
Astrology, you don't fear. And unfortunately, those apps, there's just a natural proclivity for people to fear.
And I'm not trying to diss CoStar. Well, I guess I am.
Well, I'm not,
I had to delete it off my phone because every time I opened it up, it was just negative. And I do think there is a misunderstanding out there with astrology that it is bringing out all the negative.
It is.
There are a lot of people in your business who are negative by nature.
Absolutely.
And that energy is what they attract. And you could look at a situation and you could look at, again, there's two sides of every coin. The glasses have to be the glasses half full. How are you going to look at that? We are so stuck in this negative energy. There's a lot of negative astrology that's going on right now. That's a big narrative, right? X and Y is happening and, oh God, here we go again. Or, oh, this is going to happen or this and that. Talk to us about that. When you look at what you do and your purpose in this world, how are you able to have that view that you have? And it is the space between, because you are not going to give false hope, but you're also not doom and gloom.
Well, because every time something bad is happening, there's something good. And it gets back between the balance, the space in between the good and the bad. And again, I don't want to, sugarcoat or get new agey, but to be brutally honest, those apps and some astrologers, and that's okay. Again, they're bringing people in and we're finding through discovery, and that's fine. That's fine. But to have a real understanding, and I feel strongly that I bring it. I bring it. And you have such an
amazing view of the world and of people. You can see people very clearly using astrology as a science. I think it's really important for the audience that's listening is whenever you're going to have any kind of energy work or energy reading or astrology reading or whatever it is, use discernment. Use your intuition. Is this someone I connect with?
That's right.
If it isn't, walk away.
That's right. Because it's like seeing your astrologer is like seeing your psychotherapist.
It's very powerful.
There is a psychic piece, of course.
There is.
But we're all psychic. It's just how much we've chosen to tune into that. That said, that one of the big misunderstandings is the good and bad concept. For instance, Jupiter is yes and Saturn is no.
Right.
Everyone loves when Jupiter comes around. You know what happens really when Jupiter comes around? Yes, it can bring a lottery win.
It's going to expand whatever energy exists.
Right. But
people don't really, it's innocuous.
But it's also fleeting. The energy that lawsuits and lottery wins governs is Jupiter.
Yeah.
There have been too many case studies to tell us people who win lotteries also, it's fleeting.
Right.
It doesn't last.
They lose it all. They can't handle it.
Unlike Saturn, which was Cronus. Cronus simply means time. Yeah. Saturn is an ego-driven energy. Yeah. But it says it's not time because you're not walking correctly.
Right.
So every Saturn cycle, every 90-degree Saturn, the bad or the opposite, the bad.
Right.
The mathematical
we're using
bad.
Quotes here.
Yes, and I hate doing air quotes. Forgive me.
No, but that's people need to know that.
But we get fearful.
We do.
But let me tell you something. By personal experience, Jupiter has made me gain weight. Saturn has made me walk the straight and narrow.
Right.
During COVID, Saturn opposed Pluto. I got in probably one of the best shapes of my life. Jupiter comes around, I gain half of the back. There you go with Jupiter.
Bam. Yeah. And again, that's a misconception and a misunderstanding. Another reason to, if you are interested in this, to seek out somebody that knows what they're doing.
That's right.
Because it's a science and it needs to be studied. It needs to be understood. And it needs to be, and I'd like to unpack this, coming from where you sit with all of your things in your life and everything that you're going through. How are you able to come into a reading being present for that person? Because it is hard, right?
Well,
how do you put your stuff aside? How are you able to do that? Because that's probably a big deal.
Well, first of all,
what you do.
It's not a parlor game.
Right.
And I sort of get short with friends when I tell them I have a client and it's like, you need 3 hours or when I sit with a chart, I become that person. Right. As you well know, I have a great memory.
You do.
I go back to October 1976. I know exactly where I was when Saturn was perhaps squaring my Pluto.
Right.
I remember what it felt like.
Right. And you can understand.
I feel it.
Yeah.
I know it. And I know on the other side, yes, it was tough, but it also brought blessings.
Right. And you're able to come into that experience with a clean slate.
But in the diagnosis of rudimentary astrology, it's gloom and doom.
Right.
This is not saying that, you've got to have, a bad time for good. No. It truly, you have to experience the challenge. The Jupiter, again, too many times it manifests as a nice vacation when really doors are open and we don't walk through them.
Right, because we missed out.
the Saturn experience will close a door, but we'll sit in the corner. And if we're aware, we'll work, we'll walk the chalk line,
right,
and that door will open. But it will open with the resource of Saturn where it will never go away.
Right.
Nothing against Jupiter. And believe me, I love Jupiter.
Right.
But ultimately, I'd like for people to fall in love with Saturn.
Yeah. It is very misunderstood, Saturn.
It's so misunderstood.
We should do a whole episode on Saturn. I actually wrote that down.
Really?
I have a big list.
Yeah, Saturn is so misunderstood.
And it's so important.
Because the
energy that it brings. Because that's ultimately what this is, right? For anyone that's listening, you could think about a planet. Yes, you could look at what it looks like. We have I think there was recent in the news, new pictures that we have of Saturn. Yes. Gorgeous. It's unbelievable.
Important.
The energy of it is
so
what matters.
Important. It's a transcend. It takes us from home to the outer world to relate. It's really a big piece of the space in between.
Absolutely.
The first time we have a Saturn experience is at 6 and 7.
Yeah.
When we leave mommy and daddy and we go to school. We start learning. And then 13 and 14. And that Saturn return is misunderstood also.
It is.
Because the precursor is the progressed lunar return.
Right.
I try to get, especially the kids, you're getting all bent out of shape because you're reading about the Saturn return. Oh, no.
Lots of narratives around that.
Right. Oh, it's when Amy Winehouse died. It's when Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, the 27 Club.
It's when Jimi Hendrix died.
Right.
But it's also when Barbra Streisand won an Oscar and J-Lo.
Right. It's the launch pad of your life.
So it's a choice and understanding.
Absolutely.
Right.
So you begin to understand who you are.
Right.
And what you want. It's the very first taste of that.
That precursor is the lunar return. And they act it's almost like the overture to the Saturn return. So I tell all of my clients, that's why 25, 26 is also challenging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I'm not married yet. What am I going to do with my career?
Yeah.
And
it's so funny how we're made to think that we're supposed to be doing certain things at certain points of our lives. Me starting this new endeavor at 42, people are like, what?
Well,
why are you doing that? Well, because the age doesn't matter and time is not linear. That's why.
But it's time.
Right.
You've gone through some of the most important cycles of maturity and understanding. You came out of the Neptune cycle, which is one of the most difficult because it's like, I'm not old, but I'm not young. Where am I? What is this all about, Alfie?
The fog.
It's like being a ship without a sail. And it's only about pausing. You've come into such awareness. Yes, you were aware at 27, 28. You were born aware in many ways. But now, it's no longer so nebulous. Yeah. It's no longer so that ship without a sail.
Yeah.
There's understanding.
Yeah.
And the cycle's coming up at 50, the Chiron return, all of it. But now you have every right to sit there in that chair and minister because you've lived to tell. There's an understanding. And nothing against the young astrologers. I get it. People want to make money.
And everyone has to start from somewhere. But experience matters.
Experience matters.
You've read a lot of charts, and you've seen a lot of, and you've lived a lot of life.
Yes, and I was
there is
a bit shy of telling my narrative. And I said me, but my life has mirrored that composition of the planets.
Yeah.
The Saturn return. Where was I? I was dilly-dallying. I was living in New York. I would temp, or I would be a bike messenger when you could make money, before the fax machine. It's so interesting.
Right.
But again, I remember that feeling, almost like an epiphany, of feeling. I've always felt the energy of having this heavy delivery on my back, going from the Brooklyn courthouse to the Bronx family court. It was amazing. And that's what I bring to the readings, because I really, I feel it.
Right.
I feel those cycles, because for better or for worse, I forget nothing.
Right.
And to look back, not only for me to move forward,
right,
but for my clients to move forward.
And how you resonate with that.
And how
and the opposite of misunderstanding is understanding. And I think that's the biggest thing we can take away from what you're saying is, as a science, there needs to be an incredible amount of understanding to really be able to read someone's chart.
That's right.
And the misunderstanding that can happen in a reading can then translate to the narratives that exist about astrology as an entity, as a living, breathing thing, as a,
Too many times astrology is practiced and misunderstood as the 11 p.m. local news.
Right. Right.
We almost feel pleasure, and this one was robbed, this one, really? And it isn't false optimism, because astrology really, it's a spiritual science. It demands that we walk and act right.
Yes.
That we have to behave. We have to know that 1 and 1 equals 2. We can't skip the steps and say, God save me, universe save me.
There's no quick fixes in life.
80% of all of our birth charts, and I want to be very clear, is about structure, order, maturity. Accepting the limits, accepting time. But also knowing that when you've done all you can, there is the limitless. There is that last piece, that Pisces energy for all of us. Too many of us on our way to the Pisces, to the last, to the we get involved with drug addiction. We get involved with drinking, whatever. Nobody can call names. No one has a right to say, oh, he's a crackhead. First of all, relatable. The space in between. Right. We're all touched by it.
Yeah.
But we're also in the birth chart. All of us sometimes, regardless of how we abide by Saturn, we still sometimes want to get to that point of save me.
Yeah.
But the universe only helps those who help themselves.
Amen to that.
And it's important.
Step into your life.
Be into accountable. Our life. And real astrology is very moral.
Yes.
Very moral. It's not about, put on the psychic hat and, I see you with a 6'2", the perfect dark stranger. And I'm not, if that works, but that really doesn't work.
No, that's not the science of astrology.
Right. It doesn't.
I don't want to say preying on someone's emotions. That seems.
But it does, because it makes money.
Yeah.
And I just love that it puts it out there, and the people who are supposed to find their way to the authenticity of astrology will find their way.
Whether giving a reading or getting a reading.
That's why I don't get bothered by it. I think it's wonderful.
At least people are interested in it. It's come far.
Right.
So
it's like people would get bothered by anything.
Right.
Rather, back in the fitness days, people getting bothered by over choreographed classes. You got people in, so maybe they'll come and do it right. Let people be. Let them be. If you want to, I know the person that needs ultimately, because that sort of behavior, that sort of parlor game astrology after a couple of cycles, it's like, oh no, that's not is what's really happening. What's really happening? What's the real deal? That's when you find your way to an authentic reading. Mm-hmm. And one that resonates, or that one, because seeing your astrologer is, again, it's like having a fit with a psychotherapist.
Yeah, agreed.
Right. So,
a couple questions for you.
Yes.
These are going to be the same questions for every episode that we do.
I love that. Consistency.
Consistency is key, as we
everything.
know.
It's everything.
So how has your relationship with astrology changed over the last few years?
Not trying to prove myself. Because, in fact, I was born a Saturn child. Saturn and Capricorn. At its most self-censoring way, it only demands self-censorship because, we want to put our feet on the gas, but Saturn makes us feel like the brakes are being, because you're not ready.
Right. It's not time.
That said, I didn't embrace the last piece to the chart, the miracle. When in fact, I've lived it. Yeah. That in spite of all of the Saturnian restrictions, there has been a wonderful, limitless life that I've lived. In spite of trying to prove myself initially with astrology and just the facts, Jack.
So what I hear you saying is you're settling into your birthright. You're settling into what you knew cognitively.
Yes.
And now it's in your heart and you're feeling it.
Yes.
That's amazing. And astrology can do that. And also time.
Well, astrology, that's
the
what
years on this planet.
Yeah. Yes. That's what astrology is. It's best served by respecting time. Yeah. That doesn't mean putting your head in the sand and waiting around. Alyson, when I look at the chart, anyone's chart, and we all have, and I'm not, because you're a client making someone feel good. Right. But everyone's chart is the most beautiful composition. It's a beautiful piece of music. And we get so caught up, oh, Mercury's retrograde.
That's also part of the misunderstanding.
Let me tell you something.
It's only when something's negative that it comes out.
Let me tell you something. The universe is perfect.
Yes, it is.
It's us with the lack of awareness. Yeah. We don't get it. We have to go back to move forward. Mm-hmm. The cycles of life, the way the planets move. Yeah. The way they configure to give us what feels like closed doors. It's so beautifully orchestrated. It's us that sing off key, that don't dance to the beat of the universe. With understanding, we begin to sing in key. We began to live that beautiful composition, that musical composition. And that's what I see when I see a chart. The development. And I think I said that in your pilot podcast, that I respect F. Scott Fitzgerald. But he said there are no second acts in life. No, there are many. Yeah. But we don't want to waste the opportunities. Right. That second Saturn return comes around again at 58, 59, when people are thinking, oh, this is it. Really? This is when a first-time screenwriter, first script, wanting at 27 to write movies. But then suddenly during my second Saturn return, I put pen to paper and I get up there and win an Oscar. Right. There are second acts. There are third acts.
And it's all part of the path and walking the path.
Yes. So, and again, it's never about false optimism. But if you want to stay in the past, then you're going to be stuck. Yeah. But with the dream and the visions, with your eyes wide open, that's where you want to go.
There's nothing you can't do. So it's kind of two-part. How have you noticed changes in your life with astrology? Thinking about that boy at, I think you said 13, 14,
Yes.
getting his chart read. Now you sit here having read thousands of charts, having lived, you live this science, you live the language of astrology. What is the biggest change you've seen? And then what do you wish the change for the world will be in relation to astrology? It's kind of a two-part.
Yes. And thank you for those questions. Those are really good questions.
You're welcome.
In my life, it's helped me to be even more self-aware and to be more objective, because I've been very blessed with having a business where people come to me.
Yeah.
And to know that we're all out there trying and that we all can get over the darkest of days.
We can.
The darkest. And just when, you think that you have it bad or it's rough, then, because there are points in the chart where you can see profound trauma.
When things are
unfairness, like real delay, real abuse.
Right.
Whether it be through, the sharpest sword, the abuse of the mouth,
right,
of the speech. But you can also see physical abuse in a lot of charts. Yeah. That said, the ability to heal.
Right.
I love that. I really do.
Right.
And that astrology has helped me get over some of that holding on to the past. And
that's a beautiful hope for the future.
Absolutely.
To be able to see, because I know what it's done for me. It allows me, the first reading I ever had with you, you were the first reading I ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And I just remember thinking and walking away from it, wow, all these things were just confirmed. It should be a reaffirmation of what you already know in your heart and soul. And it was so crazy to think, like, here's this person that I just met a few times and
mm-hmm.
he's literally reading into my soul.
Mm-hmm.
And for that understanding and for the healing that can come from that, that's really what the world needs.
Yes. And also the more that I've been able to help people, the more I feel of service, right, of not giving false optimism, and all of the good stuff that we want, the Range Rover or the beachfront Malibu property.
Right.
And then what?
That is not going to fulfill you.
And then what?
Yeah. There's a really good, I'm a very big fan of Rick Rubin. And he talks about when he won his first Grammy. I believe it was for the Beastie Boys, one of the early Beastie Boys records that he did. And he's a music producer and just an unbelievable human, really walking the path and serving. And he got a phone call from his manager that day. And the manager's like, oh my God, are you so excited? It's happening. He said, I've never been so miserable in my life.
Yes.
And understanding your chart and understanding your path and purpose. If you're walking your purpose and you're walking your path, all the material things in the world aren't going to matter. They can be fun, but that's not what is ever going to fulfill anyone. And having that understanding of who you are is such a beautiful thing that astrology can bring.
True transparency. I had such unparalleled success in the fitness business. I was teaching in Los Angeles and New York. There were pictures of doctors, surgeons trying to get into my class. And although I brought, and I never, for the most part, I didn't speak of astrology in class, but what I brought was the energy of the moment. And what I was giving and those Darrylisms were all rooted in my astrological profile.
Right.
That said, what I really wanted was, my true purpose was to be an astrologer. Yeah. I loved teaching, spin.
Your class was amazing. That's how I met you. It was unbelievable.
I was very frustrated that people looked at me and thought it was something to have, that I, was the king of the prom. And
it's very cultish.
And
yes,
it was everything I didn't want.
Right.
I had no need to walk. And this isn't against anyone.
No, it just didn't resonate with you. And again, it goes back to the chart. Who are you and what is it that you want from this life? Why are you here?
I had all of these beautiful people.
Right.
I had beautiful people. These beautiful boys and girls at my feet. Mm-hmm. All I saw was the individual.
Right.
I respected them. I never wanted to use that power as a predator that other instructors did.
Absolutely.
And that still has me a little paralyzed because my love was pure. It was very pure.
And it's hard to be pure in a container that is not.
Yes.
We'll just leave it at that.
But so be it. That's okay.
Which is okay. It's what it is. But it is challenging.
That's okay.
Right.
But now, that space in between this and that is to live, as you just said a few moments ago, your true purpose. And now I'm doing it.
You are. I'm so proud of you.
Now I'm doing it full on.
Yeah.
And
all the people you're touching and serving. It's just so
and
beautiful.
And in spite of whatever we feel is unfair and what shouldn't be, it doesn't matter. And I have to keep reminding myself. And many times I don't practice what I preach because I get caught up in the emotion. That's crazy. But come on, Darryl. You should know better. Forgiveness, for they do not know. And that's not being dismissive. Oh, they just don't know. It's truly forgiving.
True. Yeah.
That's that piece, that last piece that we had, religiously place it with certain things of the Christ consciousness.
Right.
But it truly is forgiveness. Most importantly of ourselves.
Yeah, that's where it all starts.
Right. And it's
where can people connect with you? If they want a reading, if they want to find out more about astrology, they want to find out more about you?
Well, our Instagram, it's Guiding Planet. Okay. My website and the way to schedule an appointment with me is guidingplanet.co, not .com.
.co.
Guidingplanet.co.
Okay. And we'll link it in the show notes below.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
And of course, from wonderful stars like you, you see me here. I hope I'm invited back again.
Oh, please. You're forced to be a regular.
No, but Alyson, I just want people to know what they were born with and the possibilities. And starting to sing, and here I go with my love for music, and this just came to me, and I might use it. But to sing their songs in the key of their life.
Oh, that's beautiful.
That's a nod to one of the greatest albums, Stevie Wonder songs.
Songs in the key of life.
That just came to me.
It's the best album. I've been digging on Stevie Wonder lately. So is my mom. Oh.
To sing in tune with awareness, to sing your song. Elton John, my song. Yeah, right?
That's beautiful, Darryl. Thank you so much.
I love the chart, I love astrology, and I love you.
I love you too. And I
love astrology. I just, it's not about hiding behind it. It's about living. Because astrology, really practiced authentically, is freedom.
It is.
Freedom to live your life.
And to be who you are.
Right.
Who you really are, your true self.
And true diversity.
Yeah.
Not diversity of the moment. True diversity. Right. And I'd love to come back and discuss that.
Oh, okay. Putting you down for that one. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving to the audience and to me today. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you. I just, talk about the space in between us. You know what it is? Comfort. Yeah. Home.
You are home too.
Feeling at home.
Thank you for that.
And even though I haven't seen you for 2 years physically, you're home. And when you look at the chart, we all want that top because that's success in the outer world.
Right.
The most important part, and I say this whether you come to me or not, I say this to your listeners, always look at the bottom.
Right.
Always. It is the foundation of life, the nadir.
Where you're home.
Because until you're to adapt, when you're at home, you know yourself and you can go, no matter how successful you are in the outer world, until you're at home, nothing else matters.
Amen.
Right? And there's so many noteworthy charts to look at that really speak for that have been recent in the news. Because you become a better astrologer because it mirrors
right
the
energy of what's going on in the moment.
Yes. And the person's choices.
Right.
You know,
and how
whether
people
it
can
be a
relate to
politician, whether it be an actor, whether it be, a sports figure.
Right.
It's all there. You look at the chart of Muhammad Ali, you look at the chart of a president, Nixon, whatever. It all mirrors.
Right. Well, we're going to end there.
Yes.
And thank you to everyone who listened to this episode. Definitely want to link the first episode below. So if somebody wants to listen to the space between, what does that mean? We really kind of went there on episode 1. And please remember to like and subscribe if you like this video on YouTube. Follow the show on your favorite podcast app. And again, the intention is just to connect back to yourself. Start a conversation either with someone, with yourself, and like you said, come home to yourself. That's where peace is, and that is a big part of the space between. So thank you, Darryl.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us in the space between. We hope this conversation sparked connection for you. Please like, subscribe, and share this episode with someone who will find value. And make sure to tune into our next episode as we continue the journey into the core themes of our lives. We'll see you again in the space between.